Greetings everyone, my name is Zetruville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Mega Man Endless. During the last part, I completed boss mode, so now in this part, I'll be playing perfect mode, as well as giving my final thoughts on Mega Man Endless as a whole. Now perfect mode is basically a harder version of classic mode, where, as I'll show right now, okay, perfect stage for this. You have only 1 point of health, you have no life or weapon drops, and all of your weapons are at 0. There is no way you can use special weapons, all you have to rely on is your base Mega Man abilities, that being jump, slide, and your Mega Buster. Any one hit will end your run and take you right back to the score screen. At least this is one of those stages which is a lot better for showing off this mode. It's basically the hardest mode of this entire game, and my least favorite. It's not due to the design problems. It's mainly because of its difficulty, and I rather prefer having some leniency while going through these stages, especially considering how difficult they are by default. Because any one mistake can end you. Oh sure, in the normal run, there were several locations, or a lot of locations, where one single mistake could end you, but here it's really exacerbated. As you see, there's no more weapon pickups there, and there's no easy way for getting across. You're getting across here without getting killed, so you need to wait. So it really slows down the pace for a lot of these stages, because you have to go through these a lot more cautiously, otherwise you'll die, like you saw over there. Like, what would only be an annoying knockback by getting hit by a Shoutman is now instant death. So basically, every single hazard and enemy in this game will now be instant death. So all stages are raised up in difficulty, but some more than others. Like those fleas, which were annoying before, where they dealt about a minor amount of damage, now they're extremely lethal. So small, very fast enemies like the Pukapellis, some of the Tellies, the Meteors or Metools, as well as those fleas, they're now one of the most dangerous enemies in the game. Mainly because they're a smaller hitbox, they're faster speed, and of course they're being able to harder hit, especially without weapons that have bigger hitboxes. As you saw there, because I missed the platform, I died. Luckily the random number generator is a bit kinder and was able to allow me to repeat this stage. So this is the hardest mode in the game, and I strongly suggest going through here once you've gone through the 48 stages, mini levels over and over, as well as played boss mode. Because you don't have the this is annoying. Because you don't have the luxury of all the special weapons against bosses. So you really gotta get used to fighting the bosses, Buster only. Especially with some of the bosses like Fireman, Quickman, Cutman, Iceman, anyone that can easily end you. Especially with Fireman and Cutman, who have very hard to react to patterns, especially with Fireman having those fire projectiles going out randomly. So it's my least favorite due to this intense difficulty. But it's not really any design flaws. It's just like the instant death mode and Mega Man Unlimited, as well as Roku-chan. So it's there for those who really are looking for a challenge, though it really slows down the pace of the game and makes you much more cautious. And certain stages are more impacted by the difficulty change more than others. For stages that already have a lot of instant death traps, it isn't that much of a change. But for stages that don't have that much instant death, oh, it's a lot of a change. Especially enemy heavy stages like the Mosh Pit level. The one from, I forget his name. But without things like the Super Slide, I mean Charge Kick, some of these segments are going to get a lot more dangerous. Like this one, where I would normally just Charge Kick to the left, but now I have to be a lot more careful so I don't fall into the pit. But as you saw, I easily died there. So it really slows down the pace of the game, and thankfully there's no perfect time mode, otherwise I would tear my hair out. So rinse and repeat, see how far you can survive for, and go into leaderboards. As I keep saying, it's the hardest mode in the game, and has the least number of screens recorded. Although somehow some people got over, I think, 80 screens, which I'm shocked. They're really the true masters of this game. As you've seen through the previous parts of this game, I'm at relatively adequate, and I'm quite... Even though I'm a relatively adequate Mega Man player, with experience in beat several fan games and games, this is one of the toughest experiences I've ever had in a Mega Man game. So I'm concerned how this will be reacted to normal Mega Man fans. I already saw a lot of the controversies and heated debates happen on the Sprites INC forums. So I'm a bit concerned how it'll be reacted to in a normal fan community. Which leads into some of my main complaints of the Mega Man Endless as a whole in general. There are too many instant death traps in this game. Basically, in this title, in a lot of the stages or mini levels, if you make one mistake or you're not playing perfectly enough, the consequence is death, and you're taken right back to the beginning. Which is quite annoying, especially because you can't really practice levels due to it being in a random mode where you randomly selected levels and endless attack. In normal Mega Man games, if you die, you're taken back to a checkpoint or the stage select screen. So you can always rough against the stages over and over, practice and practice, and then eventually you'll be able to complete the stage. But here, you don't have the liberty unless the random generation is kind to you. So that can add kind of to the frustration. And in comparison to normal Mega Man games and even fan games, there's an overabundance of instant death in this game. Like, this stage is fine. Oh sure, most of the mini levels are fine if there were just mini segments in normal Mega Man games. But because there are so many difficult segments back to back, it can get really tiring on your nerves and really doesn't add to the replayability personally. Yeah, and especially with segments like this, but this is more of a bane against perfect mode. As I was saying, there's too much overemphasis on instant death in this game, in comparison to other endless attack modes. As I mentioned before, Mega Man 9 and 10 have much easier endless attack modes. Oh sure, there are certain screens where if you screw up, the punishment is instant death. Sure, there are a couple of screens where the punishment is instant death, but in most of the cases, as long as your platforming skills are adequate, you can get across pretty easily, or moderately well. It's only if you make a major screw-up or get your frayed nerves or at boss fights you would die. Even in the endless attack mode in Mega Man Unlimited, which is certainly harder than most other endless attack modes, as long as you're careful and manage your weapon energy carefully and you took it slowly, you should be mostly fine. There were certain levels which had a lot of spikes, but there were only about half or 2/3 of them if I recall correctly. I may be misremembering, but there wasn't so much instant death like there is in this game. This game is both difficult and punishing. There are certain games which are difficult but aren't so punishing, like Super Meat Boy, because you can restart very fast. But this is one of those punishing games where if you fail, you are randomly taken back and you may not go back to the original stage that you died on. So it's definitely more punishing and can be frustrating for many normal Mega Man players. So much so that I wouldn't recommend this title until you're really experienced with Mega Man in general. The reason for this amount of instant death was that this was kind of a one-time venture into sourcing the community for Mega Man Endless levels. So people kind of went crazy. So for many of the level designers kind of went crazy on the instant death traps, which I say are okay for individual level segments, but making an entire game based off of it with all the instant death traps, yeah, it can be a problem. As I keep saying, it'd be fine in normal Mega Man stages, where it's interspersed with easier segments to allow some breathing room, but here, there isn't really breathing room to speak of, which is a problem in my eyes. Even at the boss fights, it doesn't really let up as much as it probably should. Then again, this game is kind of more in the uniques category, but I would have liked if there was more guidance or editing the levels to make them more easy for players to go through. Sure, I wouldn't mind a hard mode for more experienced players, but for newbie players, this is, I would feel, way too punishing. I mean, the normal mode of this the normal mode of this game, I feel, is basically the hard mode of this game. Oops, that was my mistake. Because normal mode in this game is equivalent to very hard mode or insane in other games, or Mega Man titles. Now, normally I would suggest to just redesign the levels, but because there's so many mini levels, it would take too much time. So, as a band-aid fix, I would suggest adding a normal mode or hard mode of the game, where it does something similar to the default damage settings of Rock Force. Essentially, in Rock Force, by default, spikes aren't instant death. That was my fault. Spikes by default deal only a quarter of Mega Man's life bar at most. So if you do get hit, you have some tolerance of getting back on your feet, and it makes a lot of the challenges much less frustrating. I would like something similar given over here, where on normal mode the players only take a quarter points of damage. On hard mode, they're touching an instant death hazard like Spike would deal half of Mega Man's health damage, and very hard mode would be the same as here. And perhaps a practice mode. I know Blyka mentioned that there is a practice mode in this game, but you only unlock it after completing one full lap of this game. I feel that's kind of way too harsh, because now the players can't really practice. Oh sure, in the main Mega Man titles there aren't any practice modes either, but they aren't that difficult as this one. So I feel it's kind of a fair trade-off. Oops. So I feel it's a kind of a fair trade-off to have a practice mode in order for players to get used to it. Sure, maybe not have any boss fights, but at least get used to the stages more and more. As right now it feels too punishing personally, and I feel it's going to drive for a lot of players. Oh sure, it was developed for a more niche Mega Man audience, but still, I don't really feel like this is exactly the best game design. Well, the randomness is fine, but combined with the too punishing behavior, I find it kind of too problematic. Personally, if the traps weren't instant death, it would have been much easier. That, or if the stages relied less on instant death, and if the spikes were, of course, non-instant death. Because we have the ability to jump out of most instant bottomless pits using the boost jump, but we don't have a chargeable spike guard here. Perhaps that would be another compromise, having the ability to charge up a spike guard so that you could take up to 3 or 4 hits as long as you have the spike guard equipped. I think that would be a nice compromise, as that would force the players to not be able to attack, or maybe just give the normal Mega Buster, while being able to take up to 4 hits and charge it up. But of course, take it away on boss mode and perfect mode. That's the one alternative. The longer alternative is of course redesigned levels. This kind of reminds me of Mega Man 20X, not Mega Man, 20XX, a game on Steam Greenlight. Oh boy, this is going horribly now. Yeah, my jump failed. This reminds me of the early access titles 20XX, which is basically Mega Man X meets roguelike, or roguelite. That one is much more forgiving because if you touch an instant death trap, or what would be an instant death trap on the normal and hard modes, you're just teleported back to your last jump spot, and you're taking 1 or 2 points of damage. I feel that would be a great addition to this game, or at least a quarter or half points of damage so you get more used to the categories, and then have a hard mode for more hardcore players as it currently is. Otherwise, personally I do like the game, but after playing it over and over and over, I just get frustrated and rather play another Mega Man title. As personally, this isn't one of my favorite Mega Man titles after playing through all of these games. Personally, I prefer MaGMML as the user-centered Mega Man practice titles. As MaGMML, even though the levels were also created by randomly created players, or amateur level designers for the most part, that was much more forgiving. I was actually expecting more spikes in MaGMML rather than Mega Man Endless, but oddly enough we have the opposite. I feel MaGMML had a much better even spread of level challenges, and even though we had bad levels like the City War, it wasn't relatively frustrating and full of instant death like it is here. You could get by using the rush jet. In fact, the majority of the levels, barring certain stages like Hard to See Land, they didn't rely on instant death traps as much, like it is so much here. Here there's an oversaturation of instant death, personally. Still can't get that jump. And that's my main problem with the game. If the oversaturation of instant death traps was reduced, either through the redesign of levels, or having a spike guard of sorts, giving quarter damage on normal mode, I would be a lot more okay with this game, and it would be a lot better personally, or more memorable. But as it stands right now, sure, the levels are well crafted by their own, but they're too punishing when going through together, and they're really taxing. And that's why it really brings it down to me compared to MaGMML, or other Mega Man Endless modes from Mega Man 9, 10, Unlimited, and not forgetting DOS Remake. Those were much easier and I felt more fun, and more forgiving and less reliant on instant death traps. After all, there's so many Mega Man gimmicks that we can use that aren't being shown here because we've restricted ourselves back to Mega Man 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 gimmicks, and stage hazards and enemies. Why aren't there more obstacles that deal points of damage, like electrical barriers that deal only a set amount of damage, like the Sparkman barriers in Sparkman stage? They would move around and create a ball of electricity, or an electric wall, which wouldn't instantly kill Mega Man but would deal some damage. I would like some more obstacles like that, rather than the overabundance of instant death traps and bottomless pits. I don't know, I felt like there should have been more variety during the level designing, and the level designers were too constrained. Plus, there wasn't really enough suggestions on avoiding instant death traps. So, to end off this Let's Play, well, I'll probably do some other parts where I go through Classic Mode, if I get over 150 screens, as well as showing off the variant of the Yellow Devil on Boss Mode if I get far enough. But from here on out, I'll probably end the Let's Play. I don't really have much else to say, because I showed off all of the modes. So I'll just show off my records. Here's Classic Mode, here's all my statistics here, for Time Mode, Boss Mode, and Perfect Mode. And as you can see from deaths, most of my deaths of course happen due to spike pits, or falling to bottomless pits in general. And we have all modes. Apparently I went over 1500 screens both on video and off video. And my favorite weapon was of course the ring boomerang, and with a close second to the magnet missile. They're one of the best weapons to use, especially with being able to fire in about 6 directions with the ring boomerang, and the magnet missile being able to fire everywhere else. So let's see who caused my most deaths. Apparently it was Gary and as well as the bosses. Strange, I found Gary's levels to be the most fun. I was expecting Flashman, Blyka's, and Joseph Collins levels to take a lot more of my lives, but apparently not. Oh, and wow, I never took any deaths from C-Bomb and I Am What I Am. I expected a lot more deaths from there too. Interesting. It's interesting seeing the statistics of who I died to. So let's end. So, to summarize my thoughts in this game, I quite like it. Oh, before I do that, credits. So for credits, we have Blyka for programming, concept, level judge, level producer, etc, etc. And here are all the other people who worked on it. Fab, Blyka, Joseph, Entity, Charge Shot, Fab, Gary, Renhook, the Mega Man Fan 19XX, Beat, Flashman, Lizard, Lobster, Franger, Odd, C-Bomb, Chingu, I Am, Lambda, Press Start, Cool, Toby Joey, and WK. Whew, that was close. Also special thanks to the Sprites INC users, Talkhaus, all these other peoples, and Snow and Pyro for creating the original engine, which was forked from Blyka's original engine for MaGMML, and then forked again for this game. So to summarize, I quite like this title, but there are several glaring flaws I wish there would have been improved that I've discovered through playing this game over and over. That being the overabundance of instant death traps. Personally, there are 2 or 3 ways you can solve it. Either redesign the levels to rely less on instant death traps, introduce a new mode where you take about a quarter or half points of damage from spikes, introduce the spike guard which you can charge up as a special weapon. Well then, that was my Let's Play of Mega Man Endless. I thank you all for watching, viewers, and I wish you all a nice day. Toodles!